I think it's safe to say that we all want to serve some kind of purpose in this world, for our existence to be wanted and needed by other people. In one way or another, a lot of our actions are driven by this desire. And I think there's no better representation of this in a piece of fiction than in the anime Mob Psycho 100, particularly in the character Reigen. He plays a really comedic role in the show and is justifiably a fan favourite character amongst the Mob Psycho fanbase. But I also think a lot of this appeal comes from the intricate yet entirely realistic struggles that Reigen faces throughout the course of the show. Reigen's philosophy is built strongly around challenging the idea of being gifted, and that even in a world full of forces beyond your own control and understanding, you can get by simply being ordinary. We all go through our lives surrounded by people labelled as gifted or talented. Maybe that person was even you. But these titles are purely destructive. For those who own the title, their ego either runs ahead of them, or the pressure to maintain that title sits like a weight on their chest. For those who have never received that praise, they're haunted by inadequacy and left to feel inferior as if they are in the shadow of these gifted people. While I would love to say that Reigen built his philosophy from a noble code of honour that he stands by thick and thin, in reality I think it's heavily centred around his own deep-seated insecurities about being just a nobody. Reigen pretty much sums up the latter part of my previous point. He is not a gifted person, and as such he exists in a state of permanent self-loathing. He maintains this carefully constructed persona as the greatest psychic of the modern era, as an overcompensation for the fact that he is the greatest at nothing. His whole life is a lie. The main issue Reigen faces is that he never internalizes any of his own philosophy. While he preaches that mediocrity is more than okay, he's still unable to shake that inadequacy that hangs over his head day by day. Despite this, there's actually a lot of moments where Reigen, intentionally or not, proves to us that being just a regular person with no outstanding qualities can actually allow you to surpass the gifted.
Now come at me and I'll face you head on!
Self-defense rush! Another one of Reigen's special moves. When it's unclear if it's actually self-defense, he'll yell out self-defense just to be safe. Impossible. I couldn't sense him at all. Who is he?
Hey, Reigen!
Everyone get up.
While his fight against Shimazaki was hilarious, it's actually a key example that even in the face of someone who is considered the top of their league, you can still overcome them through mundane and true-to-self actions. So why is it that with even all this proof, does Reigen still face such struggle? Well, it stems from something called the Solomon Paradox. This is when you are able to give superb advice to those around you, yet you yourself are unable to internalize that same advice. It's all to do with the stress and emotional disruption that we experience when we're going through our struggles. All of this noise can totally scramble our rational thinking, but we do not experience this noise on behalf of others, making it far easier to make objective and wise decisions about their situation where they themselves may struggle. This emotional noise I mentioned stems from our fear of failure and repercussions. Taking our own advice means owning full responsibility for the outcome of what happens next. If things go south based on your actions from here, there's no one to blame but you, which adds a ton of pressure. Reigen is chained within this paradox because despite being incredibly socially smart, his personal life is completely disordered. He is society's textbook failure. He's a con artist who lives alone in a small flat, he has no friends his age, and his job pays terribly and inconsistently. All of these things in his life are a result of the decisions he's made up until now, so who could blame him for being reluctant to follow his own advice if that's where he's landed as a result? Now if we bring his reliable student Mob into the equation, we can start to see this paradox come to life even more. Mob entered Reigen's office as a little boy in a lot of mental turmoil, his psychic powers making him feel alienated and dangerous, fearing what could happen if he lost control. This massive mental pressure on a young child is a prime example of this emotional noise I mentioned before. All of this fear and concern are running circles in his head, stopping him from making informed choices. Reigen is able to assume the position of responsible adult, his role as Mob's master allowing him to make objective and authoritative decisions about Mob's situation, helping to guide him forward.
Listen, just because you have these psychic powers and abilities, it doesn't mean you're any less of a human than anyone else. There are people who are fast, people who are book smart, and people with strong body odor. Psychic powers are just like that, another characteristic. You must embrace that characteristic as a part of yourself and continue to live positively. After all, the truth behind one's charm is kindness. So just be a good person. You got it?
So may I come by and talk to you again?
The true beauty of Reigen and Mob's partnership really shines through here. On one hand, we have Mob, a young boy plagued by chaotic psychic powers that prevent him from leading a normal life, living in constant worry that he may lose control. For him, Reigen is a blueprint for normality. Reigen rejects the concept of talents and gifts in favour of personality and humility, a stance that stems from his own feeling of inadequacy. But this dynamic works for Mob. Reigen shows him that his powers are no different to the skills of others and that his place in society is just as valid as anyone else's. But I think above all of this, Reigen's role as an anchor for Mob benefits himself just as much. Reigen just wants to be needed, to feel like his actions are making a difference, and through Mob, he's doing just that. Mob values kindness and humanity, which encourages Reigen to continue demonstrating these qualities in order to be the mentor that Mob needs. It provides Reigen with a lot of self-assurance that he is not a failure at life, and that he has the power to make change without any exceptional qualities. I think this fact is especially clear when Reigen's friendship with Mob broke down over Reigen's respect for Mob's social life. It was at this moment he was really forced to face the consequences of his constant lying and extortion, and with his only true friendship at risk, we begin to see far more of Reigen's mental disorder that explains why he struggles to apply his own teachings to his situation. He was not yet ready to come out from behind his facade of the greatest psychic, leading him to push Mob away instead of apologising for abusing Mob's time and labour. It's that fear of vulnerability and transparency that's probably prevented Reigen from becoming close to people in the past. After witnessing Mob carrying on with his own life just as normal without Reigen, it became painstakingly clear that Reigen actually needed Mob just as much as Mob needed Reigen. You could even argue that in truth, Reigen was benefiting on an emotional level far more than Mob ever was. The whole situation is a harsh reminder of how much we actually rely on those around us for fulfillment and reassurance.
Hey, did you know
Know what?
what I really am? I mean, what they've been saying in the news?
I always have. From the very beginning. I've known that my master is genuinely a good guy.
The person we want to be is a massive 1,000-piece puzzle, and it's a puzzle we only really have half the pieces for. What we can learn from Mob Psycho is that those other pieces we need are often offered to us by other people. We all carry bits of one another with us that, between our own fragments of struggle, make up who we are. That's why it's important to open our doors to one another and show vulnerability, because you never know what the people around you can have to offer. Sometimes we even resonate with one another through mutual struggle. For example, Reigen and Dimple have a really parallel story. Both of them are reaching for almost the exact same goal of being significant in the lives of those around them, going as far as to try and encapsulate the masses, whether on TV or through a cult, in order to fill that hole in their hearts. The main difference, however, if you couldn't tell, is that Reigen is just a simple human man, and Dimple is an otherworldly evil spirit. But I think this is where the essence of my point is. Despite Reigen having no powers at all, and Dimple having an arsenal of mythical abilities, they are both plagued by the same loneliness and desire for connection. This is basically telling us straight to our faces that no matter your skill set, you must first learn humanity and empathy in order to begin creating strong bonds with those around you. You cannot shortcut into people's hearts with superficial charm or showboating skills, nor will you be fulfilled by connections made this way. The key to filling this void is not the reverence of hundreds, but true friendship of a few. Mob would teach both Reigen and Dimple the significance of basic patience and forgiveness, showing them both that a strong bond built on good foundations and mutual exchange of care is far more valuable than the blind worship of the masses. Imagine being trapped alone on a platform within a dark expanse. Around you are shoddy wooden bridges leading into the shadows. You are surrounded by choice and variety, and yet, if you are without excessive confidence, taking a step forward to get closer to what's on the other side would feel impossible. But now imagine there's a single bridge of stone. The way is lit, and from the other side stands someone you cherish, ushering you across. Suddenly, getting closer to that other side just seems so much easier. That is what it means to build strong relationships, because in that moment when you are alone in that void, the amount of bridges no longer matters. All that matters are there is at least one you can cross without fear. We want to be needed because our relationships with others fill those gaps in ourselves that we so desperately want to fill. Reigen is a deeply flawed character, and he is painfully self-aware of those flaws. But it's through his bonds with characters like Mob that he can begin to actualize the person he really wants to be, and begin to make peace with some of those flaws. because amongst all these imperfections is countless things we can give and provide for others. It's just up to us whether we decide to open up that treasury to someone else in their time of need. For Reigen, in the finale of the show, seeing how much pain Mob had been carrying all this time helps him realise that in order to be a true friend for Mob, he needs to reciprocate that vulnerability that Mob has always shown to Reigen. A final and incredibly emotional demonstration that even in the face of forces beyond your control, just being a good person is enough.
Mob, I have no power! No spiritual power! No psychic power! I have no powers of any kind! And I never did!
On a personal note, I'm a massive fan of Mob Psycho, and how much it encapsulates really normal struggles despite being a crazy and outlandish show. I have a lot of time for one as a writer, and I would argue this is possibly my favourite piece of fiction ever. I really want to focus on how fiction can impact our lives and try and break some of that cringe culture stigma around applying the struggles of fictional characters to our own situations. I have a big problem with the idea of escapism. We often talk about media as a form of getting away from our troubles, but I honestly much prefer it when I watch something that has parallels with reality, because I feel like when I walk away from that piece of media, the fun and positive impact isn't over. I'm not returning back to that plain old life. I'm returning back with another piece of perspective that I could begin applying to my situation to make little improvements along the way. If you have, thank you very much for listening to the end. This kind of thing is very healthy for the ego. It gives me some sense of false intellectualism, so I'll try and get more videos sorted. And I would like to end on a very fitting quote from the first opening. If everyone is not special, maybe you can be what you want to be.